Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty much been a whole lifelong of doing it. It started as just me being just interested in dogs. It was something that my family couldn't get me away from. I actually was born in Massachusetts. I grew up in Brazil, and I was always fascinated with all kinds of animals, not just dogs, and pretty much dedicated my entire time to wanting to spend time with them, learn about them, learn to communicate with them. I was always really fascinated with any animal trainer, including circuses. I was, of course, like a little kid, but anything that involved animals, and I really always admired the relationships that people would form with their animal. Whether it was someone that had a cow that was really well trained, or a dog, or a horse, that was something that I was into. But in Brazil, dog training as a career was not a very popular thing. It still is not, but especially when I was growing up, it was not a thing that here, I'm getting dog to get trained. So I'm going to get the dog trained. It was really nothing to look up to, other than what I was on TV, like police dogs, protection dogs. Those were a little bit more popular, but I was limited to that. So my family always tried to get me away from it, right? And they tried to get me into sports and music, and they wanted me to go to college. They would ask me every single day, what are you going to do? And I really didn't have interest in anything else. Bring it forward to basically 18 years of just that. So 18 years of, I pretty much, I didn't have cell phones until I was 18 years old. I didn't have internet. I didn't have anything distracting me other than I was supposed to go to school, and then I would go home and I would spend my entire day learning from dogs. Now, I grew up in a very isolated part of Brazil. I feel like most people wouldn't be able to experience that in life. Most people would not. It's just very much on the top of the mountains. It was dirt road, we're away from everything, meaning there was no distraction, it was just nature. The dogs there would run free, they would go hunt at night, they would live as a pack. They would, all the neighbors that had their dogs, like they were all there in their own territory, but free to come and go as they please. So most of the dogs migrating, dogs going miles away to breed with another dog. Like I said, hunting, there was like the pack conflicts between different packs that, didn't belong, that didn't know each other. And so, again, I grew up with that until I was 18 years old. I was always noticed for having the dogs around, having them listening and following, without any formal training up until that point, other than I had worked with other dog trainers. So the trainers that were in the area, which weren't many, like I said, this was not something that was popular in Brazil, but they would usually go to another state, take some courses, and become certified dog trainers to then do police dogs and, protection dogs. And so that was my whole thing up until I was 18. I dedicated my entire 18 years old from the time I could walk until I turned 18 in Brazil, because I came here on my birthday, on my 18th birthday.
Okay.
I didn't speak English, but we're going to get into that. But basically, the first 18 years of my life was just working with dogs, hands-on. I had a lot of dogs. Like my grandfather used to bring dogs from the streets. He was like a rescuer of street dogs, basically. I grew up with my parents, away from my parents. They bought this ranch that they put on top of the mountain as a retirement place. So I was allowed to run the farm my entire childhood. Like, they weren't farm people. So I had horses, I had my own cows. I had to learn business in the sense of like milking my own goats and the cows and sell the milk and sell the eggs. And then, my passion was getting these dogs to understand me and getting to understand them. And there was nothing else, just that. When I turned 18, months before I turned 18, my family had tried my entire life up until then to get me to come to the U.S. I was the first person in the family born in the U.S. My grandparents have been coming here for the past 40, 50 years, and they, were like confused why I was the only one that didn't want to come here. And I was like, no, I feel like I'm at home, on this ranch. All my friends, they would love to have the opportunity to be able to come here, to be in my shoes, basically. And I never accepted it. For some reason, something clicked about 1 month before my birthday. I said, I'm going to go as a trial. I'll see. I don't know how long I'm going to stay. I have family here. They bought my ticket that same day for 30 days ahead, which would be no, my birthday. On my birthday, by the way, I had to then literally place my cows and my horses with people, downsize so that my grandparents could take care of, because I ran this farm on my own. My grandparents were there. They just gave me like open the doors for me to do whatever I wanted. So I learned with all the farmers how to trade and sell the animals and breed them and run a farm. And so I did that until I came here. So up until this point, I was only coming here for maybe a month. I put these animals in boarding with friends and downsize, and then I went to the airport. And so came here. My family wanted me to go to college, so they wanted to put me to college, and I wasn't allowed to have any animals. I felt very out of place. This was the only time out of.
Did you go back to Massachusetts or somewhere else?
I went back to Massachusetts.
There's a big community in there. I mean, like all my Brazilian friends started for some reason in there.
Yeah, that's why they have been coming. The Portugal immigrants, that's where they first landed, is on Cape Cod. So it
It's
was
definitely not the climate.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not. But it was just the convenience of having, connections.
For sure.
They had like Brazilian businesses there. And so I went there, and I felt very out of place. Like I said, this is, out of 18 years where I didn't have any animals. That was the first time in my entire life that I did not have a dog around. And my family, really pressured me to, what am I going to do? I have to go to college next year. And I felt really depressed. I felt out of place. I was working. This is the only time also that I worked a regular job. I was working restaurant. I didn't speak English yet. I was working 2-3 jobs, and basically in my head at this point, I was like, I'm going to make some money. I'm going back to Brazil. I'm getting my farm, and I'm going to have my dogs and run my farm, and that's it. That's going to be my life. And so I had no vision of anything else at all at this point. So what happened was about 6 months to 8 months, I would say, that I was in the U.S. Time just goes by, you're waiting to see when you're going to go home. I came on a one-way ticket, and I just kept staying longer. Finally, after all this time, because my family was really strict. Like, it was basically 2 aunts that I had here. They didn't even have kids up until that point. All they did is go to school. One of them is a pilot for Delta. The other one, she is a translator. She's a journalist. She got all these different degrees in 5 languages. They wanted to basically be a step ahead from where they come from, because we came from nothing. My grandparents, they came here, they worked just in restaurants as dishwashers, and they went to Brazil, they got this ranch, and they paved the future for their kids. So basically my aunts and my father. So they were really organized people. They walked in a straight line. They don't want to have the responsibility of having a pet. They're very animal-loving people. But my aunts in particular, they wouldn't have the responsibility of having a dog because they just focus on their career. So it was really hard. And then finally, somehow, 6 to 8 months, they allowed me to get one dog. It was like this moment, like, okay, we're not allowed to have one dog. They wanted me to get a small dog. They were very strict on anything that you read. Because my family, honestly, in the sense of this could be something for me to do, it was never an option for them. They never believed in it, they never saw potential, they never understood it. They have this mentality that you have to go to college to become something.
Get a real job eventually, right?
Maybe they wanted me to be a veterinarian, but I don't even like school. I don't like school that much. I'm not looking to be a veterinarian. I always knew I would be on a farm. That was my lifestyle, and I like to work with dogs. But I never even thought about doing dog training as a business, as a career, because again, I did not have something to look up to. Anyway, they allowed me, but they were very strict. No German Shepherds, no pit bulls, no anything they read that this dog is destructive, this dog is aggressive. I had to follow whatever they were saying or them, even though I knew better. So they agreed on a Labrador. So because I didn't want a small dog, they agreed on a Labrador. And at this point, I still had no connections. I worked in 2-3 jobs, go to work, go back home.